All right, let's dive right into this explainer and uncover the epic, honestly cinematic history of a fruit you probably have sitting in your kitchen right now. We're talking about the pear. It's so easy to just see it as a common, everyday snack, but as you're about to see, this fruit has an absolutely incredible past.
Think about that fruit bowl on your counter right now. Is there a pear in there? We so often look at everyday foods without realizing their backstory. That smooth skin and juicy flesh actually represent a survival story millions of years in the making. Today, we're going to trace its journey from prehistoric forests all the way to the modern climate crisis and show you exactly why this matters for the food system we rely on today.
You know, we hear a ton about the Cavendish banana crisis today, right? It makes up 99% of global banana exports. And because every single plant is an identical genetic clone, it's currently facing this massive monoculture crisis from the TR4 fungal disease. The pear, on the other hand, is a totally different story. It has a sweeping history of genetic diversity spanning millions of years. Because we have thousands of diverse cultivars coming from two completely independent domestication centers, the pear has built up a resilient genetic safety net that the banana simply doesn't have.
To put this into perspective, we're dealing with a massive scale of time here. We're talking about a journey that starts in the misty mountains of southwestern China 65 million years ago, pushes through to the discovery of grafting around 4000 BC, weaves into the mythology of ancient Greece in 800 BC, and goes all the way up to the modern agricultural era where favorites like the conference variety were bred in 1884.
Section 1. Origins in Ancient Forests.
So this fruit is literally an ancient evolutionary artifact. Between 65 and 55 million years ago, back in the Tertiary period, the very first Pyrus lineage popped up on the wild, untouched mountainous forests of southwestern China. And get this, it survived the massive shifting of tectonic plates and massive global climate changes, slowly spreading both east and west right across the Eurasian landmass.
And as the fruit migrated, that geographic separation led to a huge genetic divergence. We ended up with two completely distinct families of the fruit which were independently domesticated by different ancient civilizations. Over in the east, we get the Asian pear. It's round like an apple, super crisp, high in sugar, and known for those little sandy stone cells in its flesh. Meanwhile, in the west, we get the European pear, that classic teardrop shape with the soft, buttery, melt-in-your-mouth texture and a really strong aroma.
But here's the catch for early humans. Farmers in regions like the Fertile Crescent quickly realized they couldn't just plant pear seeds and expect good fruit. Pear genetics are total wildcards. If you plant a seed from a sweet pear, it'll usually grow into this thorny tree with bitter fruit that would literally crack your teeth. So about 6,000 years ago, around 4000 BC, humanity had to hack nature's code. They figured out vegetative propagation, or grafting. Basically, by cutting a branch from a rare, sweet mutation and fusing it onto wild roots, they were able to clone the very best fruit indefinitely. It was a real game changer that altered the pear's destiny forever.
Section 2. Myths and Early Domestication.
Fast forward to the 8th century BC, and you've got the great Greek poet Homer writing in the Odyssey about the magnificent palace gardens of King Alkinoos. He literally describes pears as a gift of God. The ancient Greeks worshipped this fruit, even dedicating it to Hera, the supreme goddess of marriage, women, and fertility.
And then we have the Romans. These guys were absolute agricultural visionaries who mapped out dozens of varieties that we still draw inspiration from today. Back in the 1st century AD, the natural historian Pliny the Elder documented over 40 distinct pear cultivars. The Romans perfected those advanced grafting and pruning methods, and honestly, their culinary uses were surprisingly modern. They ate them raw, sweetened them with honey, and even poached them in wine, which is exactly what high-end restaurants are doing right now.
Section 3. Monks, Sultans, and Silk Roads.
So after the fall of Rome, this precious genetic knowledge needed a sanctuary. During the Middle Ages, it was Benedictine and Cistercian monks who meticulously saved the fruit from being lost to history. Behind the high stone walls of their monastery gardens, they carefully studied ancient Roman texts, grafting and preserving these vital pear genetics. At the same time, out in the wider world, caravans traveling the famous Silk Road were constantly exchanging genetics across continents, mixing the crisp Asian pears from China with the juicy Western pears of Anatolia and Europe.
Meanwhile, in the east, the Ottoman Empire elevated the fruit even further. In Anatolia, pears were cultivated in grand palace gardens known as hasbahçe. But it wasn't just a royal thing. Everyday people developed this rich culture of winter preservation called kahak, basically sun-drying fine slices of pear to survive the harsh winters. They bred some incredible hyper-localized varieties,
like the sweet early summer Aycha, the tough winter Ankara, and my personal favorite, the Deveci, an absolutely massive Anatolian pear that can weigh up to a full kilogram for just one single fruit.
Section 4. The Modern Pear Revolution.
Moving into the 18th and 19th centuries, we hit a true golden age for botanical breeding in the West. In France and Belgium, enthusiastic botanists conducted thousands of controlled crosses. They were chasing this very specific culinary dream, and they finally nailed it. That delicate, melt-in-your-mouth texture that absolutely dominates today's supermarkets. This was the era that gave birth to heavyweights like the Williams pear, which you might know as the Bartlett in America, and the long-lasting Conference pear.
Looking at the global numbers today, it's just a massive industry. As you can see, China has absolute dominance here, producing over 16 million tons, mostly of their native Asian pear varieties. But right behind them, we have major players spanning the entire globe: the USA, Argentina down in South America, Italy in Europe, and Turkey bridging Europe and Asia. The pear really is a global commodity.
Section 5. Climate Crisis and Future Survival.
But here's where the 65 million year epic hits its greatest modern test. This ancient plant is hardwired for cold winters. Since it evolved in temperate and mountainous regions, the tree goes dormant in the winter. To wake up, bloom, and actually produce fruit in the spring, it strictly requires a specific duration of cold temperatures, which are called chilling units. And as you can probably guess, this biological requirement is becoming a huge problem in our warming world.
All over the world, from the Western Cape of South Africa to Southern Europe, rising temperatures are literally disrupting the reproductive cycle of these trees. Because winters are warmer, trees just aren't getting enough chilling units, which leads to poor blooming. On top of that, extreme summer heat is causing the fruit to literally get sunburned, ruining the color of blushed varieties. And even worse, these rising temperatures and humid spring days are accelerating the spread of a deadly bacteria called fire blight, which can wipe out entire orchards in a flash.
But look, we've been partnered with this tree for 6,000 years, and we are not giving up now. We're using cutting-edge agricultural science to adapt. Scientists are actively breeding new, heat-resistant rootstocks. Out in the fields, farmers are installing these massive sun-shading nets over entire orchards to stop sunburn, and deploying microclimate cooling sprinklers to artificially drop temperatures during extreme heat waves. They're doing whatever it takes to ensure this ancient fruit can survive the 21st century.
With over 26 million tons of global production hanging in the balance, it's a monumental challenge. So the next time you take a bite of a pear, I want you to remember that incredible 65 million year history. Think about its journey from the misty mountains of prehistoric China, through the gardens of Roman emperors and Ottoman sultans, straight to your kitchen counter. And ask yourself, how will we adapt this gift of the gods for the next chapter of its epic journey? Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and keep learning.